friend of mine's just started something that he calls the Give Chardonnay a Chance Club, because it's very fashionable at the moment in the way that Chardonnay itself was very fashionable about 10 years ago, thanks to Bridget Jones and stuff like that. Now it's fashionable not to like Chardonnay. There's people say, oh, what do you drink? I drink ABC, anything but Chardonnay, or another bloody Chardonnay. So what I've got today is I've got 3 wines, 3 Chardonnays, all from the same producer, all from the same vineyard. Let's see if we should give Chardonnay another chance, and also let's see what it is that's the difference between them, because it's very easy to say Chardonnay, I don't like Chardonnay because you've had a big blousy, buttery, overripe, what they call a Dolly Parton style of Chardonnay. But there's a wine called Chablis, which is light and crisp and delicate, and that's made from Chardonnay. Let's see what the difference is between these 3. I've got 3 from Errazuriz, and it's from their La Escultura estate in the Casablanca Valley in Chile. And I'll start off with one that's unoaked, because that's something that people say about Chardonnay. I don't like Chardonnay because it's too oaky. Well, here's an unoaked one. 2008 vintage. And it smells fresh, it smells clean, it smells of apples and pears and peaches and mangoes, and just really unripe mangoes. Just when you get that lily, you don't want to eat them, but they smell gorgeous. Why does Chardonnay need oak? Or why does any wine need oak? For me, oak is something that is there for support. If you imagine thinking of people, you know, people who are, if they have physical attributes of a small size, then they don't need maybe as much support as people whose physical attributes are a bit larger, shall we say. So there are people who can survive very, very nicely without any oak, as it were. And there are some wines like that. If you've got a nice, clean, lean Chardonnay, it doesn't need a support. Whereas if you've got something that's a bit more voluptuous, a bit more Dolly Parton-like, then it does need it. That wine for me has got that lean crispness about it. It's fresh, it's zesty, and it survives very nicely as it is without the oak. Let's see what its oakier cousin is. And for some reason the unoaked version is $8.99 and the oaked version $7.99. Can't work that out. Let's see if it's oakier but tastes cheaper. Again, Errazuriz 2008 La Escultura estate. Well, this smells riper, it smells richer, and it's got more of that oily intensity about it. Maybe this is the stereotypical Chardonnay smell that has put some people off. The daft thing is, well, like any stereotype, there's some truth in the fact that some of them do get a bit dull and boring. But to be honest, it's really quite a nice flavour. And you're getting some of that toasty, nutty edge from the extra time it's spent in a barrel. And yes, it's sweeter, peachier fruit. It feels like it's from a warmer part of the vineyard. It says it's the same vineyard. I mean, when they have these single estate vineyards in Burgundy, they're about the size of a handkerchief. When they have them in Chile, they're about the size of Yorkshire. No, not quite the size of Yorkshire, but certainly the West Riding. And I know people some people will prefer one style, some people prefer the richer, fuller, oakier style, some people prefer the leaner, finer, juicier style. And it's the same with people and their appreciation of physical attributes. So, but we've got a third wine here, Wild Ferment. What on earth does that mean? Well, it says on the front of here, made from natural yeasts. I thought there was wine made from grapes. Anyway, made from natural yeasts that yield a greater depth and complexity. Well, let's see if that's true. Basically what they're saying is with the previous 2 wines, when they want the fermentation to start, they've added yeast that they bought from a factory, a yeast factory. They may sometimes have developed their own strains and asked to have them propagated, But with the wild ferment one, yeah, a grape has got everything in it that it takes to make a wine just by itself. If you just leave a bunch of grapes, bunch of grapes is in a bucket, the pressure, the weight from the ones on the top will squash the ones underneath. The juice starts to ooze out, and there's yeast on the skins of the grapes, and that'll start fermenting the grapes. So there'll be a bit of the yeast that's been on the grape skins, but also yeast populations hang around in the air in the winery. So some people call them indigenous yeasts, native yeasts. They put wild ferment on here. And in general, the difference between ones with wild ferment and non-wild ferment, I suppose it's a bit like the difference between recorded music and live music. Live music at its best is better, and at its worst is far worse. There's more range, there's more funkiness in the live performance. But if it goes wrong, if it goes pear-shaped, then it goes absolutely pear-shaped. Let's see what happened to the wine. And you get quite a different style of flavour here. It's 2007 vintage, so it's a year older than the other two. But the oak influence here, it's not giving it an oak flavour. What it's given is just this gentle roundness. The fermentation with the wild ferment just takes longer. And maybe it's because of that. I suppose it's maybe like long, slow cooking. You get a different type of flavour coming through. More interesting, more complex flavour, I'd say. So what's happened with that one? The fruit is what I call underplayed. The fruit sits more in the background, letting this rounder, toasty, nutty edge come more to the fore. And there's far more length. It doesn't fit. Maybe it's not as crisp as the unoaked one, but it's more complex. It's not as voluptuous as the oaked one, but it's got far more going on in there. And so it's size-wise, it's halfway between the two, but far more interesting a wine. And it's £1 more than the unoaked, so it goes £7.99 for the oaked, £8.99 unoaked, £9.99 for the wild ferment. And just to see whether it is the consequence of the extra age that's making it a bit more interesting, I've got a bottle here of just the normal 2007, the oaked one. Let's see what that's like in comparison. And it's nice, but it's come down after the wild ferment. It's not as complex, it's not as interesting, and yes, and it's gone back to listening to something on CD rather than being there. I don't know if it's mosh pit wine, but certainly the wild ferment lives a bit more up to its name. Maybe not as wild as it could be, but it's let its hair down a bit more. And that's something I wish Chile's winemakers would do a bit more. Let the hair down, because they've got beautiful fruit, and just giving it a little bit more wildness in there would do them a whole lot of good. Thanks.